The lost survival engine of World War II, that modern preppers completely overlook. If you've spent any time studying real survival history, you know the truth hits fast and hits hard. The people who outlasted World War II weren't action movie commandos or miracle strategists. The real masters of endurance were the rural families who survived year after year with nothing but grit, ancestral knowledge, and systems designed to work even when the world fell apart. And if you're a serious history buff or prepper, lean in, because the techniques they used weren't lucky guesses. These were pressure-tested methods refined long before the world went to war. And they carried entire communities through food shortages, broken supply chains, and winters that didn't care who held the front line. Let's get straight into the 7 survival systems modern preppers rarely talk about, but absolutely should. Root cellars worked as free refrigeration most preppers never think about. During World War II, rural families didn't rely on electricity to preserve food. They trusted the earth itself. A proper root cellar wasn't a basement with potatoes tossed in the corner. It was a climate-controlled chamber dug below the frost line, where humidity and temperature stayed constant without any machinery. Carrots, cabbages, turnips, parsnips, these could last 4 to 6 months with no power, no chemicals, no plastic containers. Today, even if you don't have space for a full underground vault, the principle still works. Bury a food-grade barrel in a hill. Layer sand between root vegetables. Add a basic vent pipe so condensation doesn't kill your hard work. Even in hot climates, you'll see temperatures drop dramatically once you go underground. What peasants did wasn't primitive. It was engineering without the ego. Stacked growing systems turned tiny plots into hidden food engines. While soldiers fought for territory, farmers fought for calories. Land seizures and grain confiscation were brutal during World War II. So peasants adapted by turning every scrap of soil into a multi-layered food machine. Tall plants created shade or wind protection. Vines climbed those tall stalks, and fast-growing greens filled empty space, preventing weeds and, doubling output. This wasn't romantic gardening. This was stealth food production that occupying forces often missed because it didn't look like traditional rows. Try this in your backyard and, just watch how it multiplies yield. Corn with beans climbing the stalks, sunflowers paired with cucumbers, lettuce or radishes sitting at their feet. More calories per square foot, less water wasted, and fewer pests. These aren't trends. These are battlefield-tested planting strategies. Fermentation kept communities alive when jars, lids and fuel ran out. Canning supplies were scarce during the war. Glass was rationed and metal lids nearly vanished. So fermentation stepped in as the hero most modern preppers underestimate. Sauerkraut, fermented beets, kvass, pickled roots. These weren't snacks. They were nutritional lifelines through dead winters when vitamin deficiency could kill you as surely as hunger. The method is still as simple and reliable as it was in 1942. Vegetables, salt, water. Keep the produce fully submerged and let nature handle the rest. No power, no heat, no fancy equipment. And the result? Food that lasts months while boosting your health. If your prepping strategy ignores fermentation, you're missing one of the most durable forms of food security ever created. Broth extraction turned animal scraps into caloric gold. Here's a hard truth modern survivalists forget. Most people today waste the most nutritious parts of an animal. In World War II, peasants boiled bones until they surrendered everything: collagen, fat, minerals, gelatin, marrow. A chicken didn't just feed a family for one night. Through broth extraction, it fed them for days. To use this today, simmer bones for a full 12 to 24 hours. Reduce the broth until it becomes thick and calorie-dense. In a grid-down scenario, it's the difference between surviving on scraps and eating like a strategist. The peasants understood this intuitively. We've forgotten it. Wild plant gathering wasn't a hobby. It was a survival mandate. For many families, gathering from the wild wasn't optional. It was the only way to fill the micronutrient gaps that ration diets created. Nettles, dandelion greens, sorrel, berries, rose hips, plants we dismiss today were essential sources of iron, vitamin C, fibre and minerals. Here's how to apply this without overwhelming yourself. Choose 5 edible plants in your region and master them. That's it. 5. Learn their growing season, appearance, taste, and safe preparation. This mirrors what wartime families actually did. They didn't forage like botanists. They foraged like survivors. Dairy and fats were preserved through controlled spoilage, not refrigeration. You know, modern kitchens treat milk as if it's terribly fragile. But wartime rural families, well, they treated it as one of the most flexible foods they had. Milk was intentionally fermented into clabbered milk, kefir, yogurt and soft cheeses. Butter was salted, buried or even submerged in cool water to keep it from going rancid. These transformations, they extended shelf life dramatically. A single day's milk could last a week. Butter could last for months. Try this today by culturing milk with a spoonful of live yogurt. Just let it thicken at room temperature. You can use it for baking, cheese making, or as a base for spreads. Salt your butter heavily and store it in the coolest spot available. These techniques, they don't need electricity, they need understanding. With wood rationed and fuel so scarce, peasants turned to thick clay ovens that absorbed heat slowly and released it gradually for hours. One small burn cycle could bake bread, roast vegetables, dry herbs, and heat water. A backyard cob oven today is honestly incredibly efficient. Clay, straw, sand and a free afternoon are enough to build a heat-retaining cooker that laughs at power outages. During World War II, these ovens weren't charming relics. They were life support. These 7 methods weren't survival hacks. They were survival systems. Systems that don't fail when supply chains crumble or electricity disappears. Systems built by people who didn't wait for rescue because, frankly, they knew none was coming. If you want more deep historical strategies that actually work in the modern world, subscribe to HistoryHQ, hit that like button, and share this with someone who loves real survival knowledge. Not the Hollywood version, but the version forged in the hardest years of the 20th century.